Remembering President Jimmy Carter, he impacted lives around the world and here in South Florida. Ron Book with the Homeless Trust knew the former president, was even a delegate at the 1976 Democratic Convention, and caught a ride with him on Air Force One. Ron joins us live now. Ron, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Why don't you, first of all, talk about how you knew President Carter?
Well, I got to know President Carter back during the original campaign in 1976. While I was still in law school in New Orleans, I got a chance to be part of that campaign, running the Peanut Brigade in Louisiana and also helping back here in Florida. I came back from law school and went to work for Bob Graham in 1978 and 1980. Had an opportunity to do some other things with the president, which included going down to the docks on assignment by Graham to the Mariel boat lift. Had a lot of opportunities to interact with him over the years.
You know, as you were saying, President Carter was in office during that crucial time here in South Florida, the Mariel boat lift. When we spoke earlier, you talked about how he made sure that our community was taken care of, at least financially.
Look, I think one of the most forgotten things is the fact that the federal government didn't abandon us, not only from a city and a county and a school district perspective, but from a state perspective as well. He made certain that we were, if you will, those impacts on Jackson Memorial, those impacts on our school system, both in Miami-Dade and in Broward, were made whole during that time. I think today people forget that when folks cross the border, whether we have a flawed immigration policy or not, that's the federal government's responsibility and not the state and local governments. And I think one of the things I remember best is making certain that the president made certain that we were made whole as a community. I think that was a big deal, and a lot of people have forgotten that.
You know, after President Carter left the White House, he certainly did not retire. He made quite a difference around the world. Talk about that.
Look, when you talk about housing for people most in need, you think about Habitat for Humanity, and you think about the alter ego of Habitat for Humanity being Jimmy Carter, and all of the hundreds and thousands of homes that have been built across the country for people in need of housing. And I think the other thing that he certainly stood for so much around the world was traveling to make certain that free elections occurred, that the democratic process worked in other places in the world where they did not always have free elections. And he always made certain that the federal government sent, if you will, election monitors to those other countries to make sure that they were free and open elections.
And talk about just what kind of guy he was, what your personal connection was, how you felt when you were around him.
I remember going with my daughter, Senator Book, and my 3 grandchildren to Plains, Georgia several years ago to listen to the president give his 799th sermon and his 799th Sunday school lesson. He knew very little about my daughter at that time. His sermon was about human trafficking and child abuse. It was one of those moments that you just go, wow, how could that possibly have been the subject of today based on the many things that my daughter and I have done in the world of child abuse. I think that the one thing about the president was he was always folksy, always comforting, always soft-spoken, and always easy to communicate with and dialogue with on a regular basis. He was an everyday person, a farmer, if you will, from Plains, Georgia.
All right, Ron, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
Thank you.